and they had many farm chores to do. Today they were raking the fields. So they stood up and they took their rakes in their hands and they raked the fields. And today they decided that they were making rainbow strawberries. So they put some rainbow strawberry seeds into the ground.
I decided.
And then they watered the plants. They had a lot of chores to do. And then at the end of the day, Hildegard sat in her favorite chair to do some sewing. And Sarah went for her after dinner walk. And she was walking and she saw something she had never seen before on the ground.
Can I be asleep?
Not for this part. And so there was two big things on the ground. And she said, "What are those?"
What are those?
And she was so confused. They were so very big. And so she called for her mother. She said, "Mom!
Mom,
Come here quick!"
come here quick.
Hildegard dropped her sewing and came over and said, "What?
What?
Those are big eggs."
Those are big eggs.
Well, they made her nervous. So she shook her finger and she said, "Stay away from those eggs."
Stay away from those eggs.
And then they both went home. Oh, but Sarah was so curious. She didn't want to disobey her mother, but she could not help it. And so she went back into the cave and she sat down and she watched the eggs. And one day, they began to wiggle and move. And they were shaking and shaking. And then finally, they burst out of their shell and their heads popped up. And they said, "Hello."
Hello.
She was so surprised. She jumped up and put her hands on her face and said, "Dragons?"
Dragons?
And she said, "What are your names?"
What are your names? Hank. Ender Dragon?
And then she decided she would take good care of Hank and Ender Dragon, for she thought they were so cute. So she said, "What do you eat?"
What do you eat?
And they said, "Eels."
Eels.
So she went home to Hildegard and she said, "Do you have any eels?"
Do you have any eels? Look in the garden.
And so she looked around in the garden and she found in a little stream an eel. And she picked it up with her bare hand and she said, "Ew!"
Ew.
But she brought it over to them and they ate it and they loved it. And then they said, "Do you have any bugs?"
Do you have any bugs?
So she went and asked her mom.
Do you have any bugs? Look in the garden.
And so she went and she turned over some rocks and she found some bugs and she said, "Ew!"
Ew.
But she brought them the bugs and they ate them. Well, they got bigger and bigger and bigger. And one day, when she was reading them a bedtime story,
So I put these two down?
sure. And just as soon as she started telling the story, she said, "Once upon a time," and they instantly fell asleep. She was such a good dragon mom that the dragons grew big and strong. And one day they all woke up and the dragons realized that they could fly. And so they got into their flying spot. Both the dragons got into their flying spot, which is at the edge of the farm. And Sarah got on top and they flapped their mighty wings.
Me too.
And Sarah said, "Mom, I'm flying on a dragon."
Mom, I'm flying on a dragon. What you said?
And she said, "I want to come."
I want to come.
And she got on. And it was so amazing up there. They both said, "Wow."
Wow.
It was very cool. But Hildegard didn't really want a dragon around the farm. She said, "Dragons don't belong on farms."
Dragons don't belong on farms.
Until one day, it was a different day, and they were no longer flying. And Hildegard said about her tomatoes, "Oh no!
Oh no!
My tomatoes,
My tomatoes.
they're dry."
They're dry.
She turned to Sarah and she said, "All the tomatoes might die."
All the tomatoes might die.
Sarah said, "Oh no."
Oh no.
And just then the dragons came out and they used their big wings to fan the tomatoes until they were so cool and they were no longer dry. Well, Hildegard was amazed. She said, "Thank you."
Thank you.
And she didn't know how to repay them, so she said, "What do you eat?"
What do you eat?
He said, "Eels." And so she went into the kitchen and she took some eels and she put them in an eel pot pie and she put it in the oven. And when it was done, she brought it over on a nice platter and she said, "I made eel pot pie."
I made eel pot pie.
And they ate it up. So So she became friends with the dragons. Well, one day, they decided that they would help with the farming. So they helped plant some corn. So they took their big dragon tails and they drew big lines in the ground. And then they filled them with corn. And eventually, there was so much corn that one day Sarah was going for a walk and she said, "There's too much corn!"
There's too much corn.
And Hildegard said, "What will we do with all this corn?"
What will we do with all this corn?
They did not know, but the dragons had an idea. So then, out in the cornfields, and we'll all be corn now, the dragons came over and they used their fiery breath to breathe on the corn. And it began to pop.
Pop, 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 pop.
There was so much popcorn that everybody, including the dragons, started bagging it up. So they all bagged up the popcorn, and they salted it, and they tied it up, and then they bagged up more of it, and they salted it and tied it up, and they did this until they were very tired, and then they went into town saying,
Popcorn, get your popcorn.
and they said, "Made by dragons."
Made by dragons.
And people from all over came to buy the dragon popped popcorn. In fact, you can all sit down for a moment. So many people came from so many towns thinking that the dragon made popcorn and the dragon made tomatoes and other
I did
vegetables
my bed.
had magical cures. One day, someone came who had pneumonia. And they came up and they said, "I have pneumonia."
I have pneumonia.
And they said what they needed.
I need dragon popcorn.
And somebody else came and said,
I need dragon popcorn.
for his pneumonia. And then someone else came and said, I have the flu and a headache.
I have a blue
And she said what she needed.
rainbow strawberry.
She needed rainbow strawberries made by dragons. And then somebody else came and said,
I have the flu. I need carrots.
oh, so many people came to the town that the farm was flooded with all these people thinking they had magical cures. And Hildegard had had enough. She said, "Everybody go home."
Everybody go home.
And so all the people left town. Well, that night, when Sarah went to the dragon cave to read them a bedtime story, she was reading a story about dragons when she opened it up, and inside was a map. And she said, "A dragon island?"
A dragon island.
Hank and Ender Dragon were so excited. They said, "A dragon island?"
Wait, when they come back, I'm gonna be away.
And Sarah said, "We should go."
We should go.
And so they got ready to fly. And Sarah said, "Mom, wake up.
Mom, wake up.
We're going to Dragon Island."
We're going to Dragon Island. Okay.
And Mom decided not to go. And so Hank and Ender Dragon got in place for flying. And Sarah got on board, and they flapped their wings, and they flew all the way out into the ocean to the Dragon Island. And then eventually she saw it, and she pointed out, and she said, "There it is."
There it is.
And so they landed, and there was a dragon lady there to greet them. And she said, "Welcome to Dragon Island.
Welcome to Dragon Island.
Stay at the Dragon Hotel.
Stay at the Dragon Hotel.
Eat at the Dragon Restaurant.
Eat at the Dragon Restaurant.
Swim in the Dragon Swimming Pool."
Swim in the Dragon Swimming Pool.
Well, Ender Dragon and Hank said, "This is awesome."
This is awesome.
They were so excited. And Sarah said, "This is where you belong."
This is where you belong.
But then she felt very sad. And she said, "I will miss you."
I will miss you.
And they said, "We'll miss you too."
We'll miss you too.
And she said, "I don't want to say goodbye."
I don't want to say goodbye.
And they said, "We don't either."
We don't need.
And then they all cried a lot. And then they said, "We have something for you." The dragon said, "We have something for you."
We have something.
And they wheeled over a whole wheelbarrow full of something. And she said, "Dragon eggs!"
Dragon eggs.
And she got on the dragon plane and she flew all the way back to Mom. And she said, "Mom, look!"
Mom, look.
And her mom said, "More dragon eggs?"
More dragon eggs.
And Sarah said, I raise dragons.
I raise dragons.
That's what I do.
That's what I do.
And the little eggs began to shake and noodle. And she knew that pretty soon she would be taking care of a whole lot more dragon babies. The end. My friends, can you put your feet on the acting line? Put your hand on your belly and take a bow. Lovely job, everybody.